protocol. Yeah, and the different layers, we will transport the different layers protocol data unit. Protocol data unit. For example, we often said that the second layer, data link layer, transport the PDU. This PDU we often call the frame, and the network layers transport PDU is what? Packet. Yeah, packet. And we often said that in the passive attackers, and the attacker simply observed and analyzed the protocol's data unit, this PDU, and not interfered with the flow. So we only use the only to do some analysis of the list PDUs, but in the active attackers, attacker is to point to these attackers do some process in the PDUs, some in the some connections, and so for example, passive attackers, for example, port scanner and the idle scan and red typing, white typing. This is also belong to the passive attackers, this field. And then another active attacker, for example, DOS attacker and the DNS moving and the man in the middle. This is also belong to the active attacker. Active attacker. Okay, in this ways, we will have the different typical attacker. For example, this is Peter showing some typical attacker: DCP, SYN flooding, SMP flooding, smoothing, and the fragment attacker, teardrop and IP smoothing, and DNS smoothing. Do you know this? Let's see some typical attackers. For example, TCP SYN flooding. TCP SYN flooding. I think somebody knows that the TCP, these connections, we will have the different field, byte field, to connect to obtain the connections. So these attackers usually send some SYN package to the routers of the destinations from the source stations. But if the destinations routers received this SYN packet or not to respond to the acknowledgement. So in these ways, the destination routers should construct the longer connections queues and because there hasn't because if these queues not received some acknowledgement. So in this ways, we will have there has a waste some resources. Sometimes can't supply the service, maintenance the service. This is TCP SYN flooding. Because TCP is oriented connections, they should send the connections. And ICMP flooding, I think someone looked at ICMP flooding. ICMP, let's say the ICMP flooding. I think someone looked at the ICMP. Let's see the famous famous comment. The famous comment is the ICMP is the ping. Do you know? Ping, P-I-N-G. This comment can send the context the network connection situation, and so another some different DNS moving, IPs moving, DNS moving or DNS caching pushing. It's a computer hacking attackers, and whereby data is introduced into a DNS resonance cache and causing the name service to return an interconnection's IP address and diverting traffic to the attacker's complete adding others computers. Okay, after this, if you have some, after this, yeah, ICMP flooding, just like ping of the desk, and not only this, but because I think some of those flooding, it means that flooding means that they should do some IP ping of the desk. They will should send some different pings. Pins on desk is use the ICMP's protocols to do the attackers. If attackers send a packet, it's longer than the 65535. Some destination stations were restructured these frames. So in this ways, they will have offered these attackers. So in this way, the systems were counter. The system sometimes is counter supplied some service. Yeah. Okay, and this is some typical attackers. Okay, after this, if you have some questions or some interesting in this, we can discuss with each other. Another is the protector method, information security protector method. For example, securities and data securities, computer system securities, and network securities. Management securities, and also nodes. We will have the management protector method, and so in this way, network can provide some service. For example, security service. This securities also has a different layer, different type security service. For example, data confidentiality service. And this is avoid unauthorized access, and this is protect the sometimes it to protect the data, and then another data integrity service. This is aimed to oriented collected or LAN collected situations. Do the data integrity service, and then another service access control service. Access control service. It means that yeah, should level no should be enable. It's very important in this field. The no should be enable. Yeah, and differentiation systems and anti-deny service. This is also different service. And then another securities method. We can use a different method to support support the securities service, encryption and filling and root controls and data integration and access controls. So in these ways, if we want to provide the different service, we should use the different method. So there has some relationship between the service and the method. Yeah. So for example, if we want to achieve the differentiation system service, we should the digital signature and the differential exchange and the notarization. And then others, if you so in this way, there's some relationship between them. Okay, in this field, we often use some different model. One model is to, let's say, the models of the network securities. Okay, so in these ways, sometimes we often said that the one is security related transformation, and then another also is the security related transformation, and let's say the information channels. And so sometimes they had some opponent to attackers in list. So sometimes let's say it's very normal models. If we want to use these models, required us to first design a suitable algorithm for the securities transformation. Yeah, in this transformation, and also in these ways, sometimes we were generated the security information, or sometimes we often call this the keys, security keys used by this algorithm, and developed method to disrupt, dispute, and share the secret information. And the next, specify a protocol enabling the principals to use the transformation and the secret information for security service. Okay, let's see another important model. This is access securities model. Access securities model. Let's say sometimes we were in these models we also faced some problems. For example, let's say some openers. These openers sometimes is for example, attacker. For example, this is a human, and then others this opponent is, and also we often call some soft various worms. This is also belong to the opponent field. This is access models. We can use the access channels to access the list securities models, and so in this ways we will use the gatekeepers functions. So in these ways, if we want to use this access securities models, and we can select priorities gatekeepers functions to identify users, and implement securities controls to ensure only authorized users access designated information or less resources, and trusted computer systems can be used to implement this model. Okay, and also there has some technical view. First, users authentications. This is the first. The first is the security store. a variety of security methods can play a role in the promise authentications technologies. And another firewall. And firewall is the form of access controlling product. It can be prevent and safe access to the internet to the externals. And sometimes this is a very useful method, common method in some different company. And the network security isolation and the VPN. Yeah, this is very common. And then another, some security service and the CA and the PKI product and securities management center and the intrusions detection systems and the intrusions prevent system, IDS and IPS. And sometimes if we want to protect data, we also use a safety data space and security operating systems and document encryptions. Okay, and also just now, not only in this, securities must, this field also must lead some security policies, not only the technologies, and also lead the securities policy and the know of this field. Okay, and next I want to show some technologies of this field. For example, man in the middle attacker. Man in the middle attacker. Man in the middle attacker. This is the sometimes we often say that this is the we often say that this is the common attackers in this field. So in this way, I hope you can know that this man in the middle attacker. Man in the middle attacker. Let's say the more sophisticated attackers. So in this way, attackers set up terminals that users are falling into the login into, and the attacker then connect to the actual servers and giving the users the impressions that they have logged onto the systems without incident. And this is a difficult attack to the sword, and this attack is not for metros. So in this way, I want to show this. For example, this is the man in the middle attacker. I want to explain. Suppose that this is has Alice, and suppose that Alice wishes to communicate with Bob, and meanwhile, the military wishes to intercept the conversations to eavesdrop and possibly delivered false message to the Bob. So first, in this one, Alice asked Bob for his public key. They also use some algorithms to use the disaggregate the security keys. For example, Alice first to ask the Bob for his public key, and if Bob sends his public keys to Alice, but military is able to intercept it, a man in the middle attackers can begin, and the military sends a forged message to Alice that claim that let's say the keys to Bob from Bob, and but instead include military public keys. So in this way, Alice believed that these public keys from the Bob, and so in this way, Alice encrypted her message, used these keys, and sent the message back to the Bob. And the monitoring again intercept and interpret the message using the prevent keys. So in this ways, however, because it is actually encrypted with a monitoring key, so in this way, monitors can decrypt it and read it and modify it if designed. So in this way, we encrypt with Bob's keys and forward it to Bob. So in this way, Bob thinks that this message is very secure. It's very secure. This is the secured communications from Alice. This example shows the need for Alice and Bob to have some way to ensure that they are truly using each other's public keys and rather than the public keys of the attacker. And otherwise, such attackers are generally possible in principles against the alien's message sent using public keys technologies. And fortunately, there are the variety of technologies that help defend against this attacker. And another is insertion attacker. Insertion attacker, this is occurred when the attacker is able to access the networks without authentication. This is an instant. And then another is a DOS attacker. DOS attacker. Just now, I remember some students asked DOS attacker. Yeah. DOS attacker is a denial of service. Occurs when the attackers avoid the service with the request. And in computing, delay of service attacker is attempt to make a machine or network resource available to its intended users. This could be CPU resources, but often involved effort to the temporary or indefinite interrupt or suspend service of a host connected to the internet. So in this way, this DOS, sometimes we often use the DDoS, distributed DOS, is where incoming traffic comes from more than one and sometimes often thousands of the unique IPs, either from the botnet or by various types of the reflected attackers. This is the DOS attacker. And then another interceptions occurs when attackers gains access to the network and eavesdrops on the network's traffic. And the peer-to-peer, we often call this the client-to-client attacker. Occurred when attackers directly attackers users of the networks as opposed to just the network itself, and max moving. This occurs when the attacker monitors the traffic of the network for MAC IDs, and which can then be used to access a network under false identities. And already the owner of the MAC ID may be blamed for the attacker's damage, and a good way for disgruntled employee to get back that another's employee. And then others, sometimes we often said that in the wireless network, the network security is very important because in the wireless or mobile network we often use the received the different sources informations that use the wide channels. So in these ways, the security is more important than the mobile than the wide network. For example, IEEE 802.11 Wi-Fi network securities. Securities, for example, securities 802.11. They also use the encryptions, authentications. In this field, the first attempt at 802.11 securities, and they want to use the WEP that field because sometimes this is very easy to attack. So in these ways, they want to attack the WPA2 or 802.11Is. So just now we said that WEP, this is authentication as in the protocol. Host requests the authentication from the access point. And the access point sends 128-bit nulls, and host encrypted the nulls using shared symmetric keys, and access point decrypt nulls authenticated host. No key distribution method authentication, knowing the shared key is enough. So sometimes we will use the PSK and the randomness. WPA and the WPA2 operated in two modes. One is the PSK and another is randomness. Users must enter the keys on each device. And randomness service, this is used with 802.1x authentication, and each user has an individual keys and more security recommended for the enterprises. And another, let's see, 802.11i. 11i, we can see. So in this ways, in the 802.11i's, we can see this. This is a sum station, and this is the authentication service. So the first is the discoveries of the security's capabilities to the access point. Yeah, I think some of those is access points. This is the base station in the 802.11. And second step is station and the authentication service. Machine learning authenticate together generated master key. MK, and AP service as pass-through, and stations delivered the PMK, and also authentication service deliver the same PSK sent to AP, and station AP use the PMK to deliver TK used for the message encryptions. Let's see, and the integrity. This is 802.11i. Okay. This is 802.11i securities. I only want to show something, show some examples of examples of the in the wireless network securities, and so the last part.
Thank you.
I want to say something about this. First, I want to show some information about your country's networks, some development constructions, and the national strategy for the network securities. I want to show something. Wait for a moment. Just now we said that different countries in nowadays will have the different national strategy of this field, and they have the different defined in this. I want to show something about this. PPT 有点问题。Wait. 看不到什么吧？是不是看不到什么？是不是看不到什么？好。Wait for a moment.
我讲。
死机了。死机了。我想打开一个那个给他看一下。
Okay, my friend, wait for a while.
Just now we said in our countries, the topics in our countries, the leaders, the topics leader Xi Jinping is the.
你撒风那段？
哎，好了，可以了吗？等一下啊。Just now we said the cybersecurity has ascended to the significant national strategy, and also in our countries, the Xi Jinping, the top leader, is leaders of the central internet securities and informations. And also I want to show something about in our countries. In our countries we were development the networks and different cities can begin to construct their smart city and digital cities. So in these ways, the network security is very important. Okay, and also I want to show some experience to show some construction experience in our countries. In our countries, for example, in our countries, we will have some advice to construct the networks. Let's say it's selected from the cyberspace. Governance should focus on top levels designs written by the some researchers in our countries. For example, in our countries, suggestions of the information export for the top levels designs of the cyber securities. They had the 6 major problems on top levels design of the cyber governance. The first one is independent innovation. I think somebody knows. The independent innovation, the first, we should conduct overall planning and key studies regarding on the core technologies and some main projects from the state levels. And also we should formulate R&D's method and the advancement routers, and which have the involvement of different department and different industry. And so in these ways, and in our countries, we should complete the transform and the replacement of the made in China's network or product in this field. This is the first one. And the second one, second problems on top levels design of the cyber governance is scientific management. So in this way, we should. So in this ways, we should adhere to animate the pay equals attention to the technologies and the legal institutions and management. And then the third is integration or defend and construction. And the fourth is a cyber governance according to the norm. And just now somebody said that the norm is very important. Yeah, law should be enabled, and we must support the light on law. Yeah. We should elevate our capability to govern the cyberspace by the legislation, and so we should protect citizens some right and to express their wills and safeguard citizens' information securities by network legislations. And the five is connections to the international government, and this is to let's say the insurance and international governance of the cyberspace. It's the inevitable choice and directions of the international community. And the last one is nationwide mobilizations. Okay, let's say some ones. And just now we said that cybersecurity has ascended to the national stage, and different countries also have a different cybersecurity defines. For example, France. So cybersecurity means the designed state of the information system in which it resisted event from the cyberspace, like to the compresses availability, integrity, or confidentiality of the data stores, processed, or transmitted, and of the related service that these systems offered or make accessible. And cybersecurity make use of the information system security technologies and is based on fighting cyber crimes and in establishing cyber defense. And in Germany, cybersecurity and similarly and the military cybersecurity are global cybersecurity. This is the design objective of the IT security situation in which the risk of the global cyberspace have been reduced and acceptable minimums. And we agree, cybersecurity is the continuous and planning, taking the political, legit, economic, education, awareness rising and technical methods to management risk in the cyberspace that transforms the cyberspace into the reliable environment for smoothing functions and operation or social and economic process by ensuring an acceptable level of the risk in cyberspace. And in Czech Republic, cybersecurity means a complex or legal, organizational, technical, and educational means ensure the protections of cyberspace. And in finance, cybersecurity means the designs and the stage in which the cyber domains is reliable and in which in functions ensured. And in our countries, to supervise the measures of the militaries of the industries and information technologies of the People's Republic of China. This is a group organizations in our countries to responsible for the informations and network constructions. The militaries of the industries and information technologies of the People's Republic of China has defined the technology, defined the telecommunications operators' responsibilities. It said that whoever is in charge is responsible. Whoever conducts management is responsible, and whoever implement access is responsible. And Jadiko's interpretations of two highs said that whoever conduct management is responsible, and whoever implement access is responsible, and whoever change is responsible. And so both of the two versions of the three who's in our countries list three who's principles and define the telecommunication operators' responsibility in governing the intellect environment, and the operators are more than the transparent and accountable pipers operations. And also, just now, some people said that different countries also have the different networks development and network securities, and in our countries, in different countries, we have a network. Oh yeah, in Ethiopia. Okay, some people said that in your countries you all have also have the network securities administration. Yeah, yeah. And we have to think well with the practical class, yeah. And we administrators and owning the PKI, yeah. Rota case or Sudan, yeah, in Sudan. Okay, and some show you want to show something practical scenarios, yeah. In this ways, we only to show some technologies. I think another teachers will show some practical scenarios. Oh, in your countries, you have some network securities administrations, and I think you can, and different countries also have the different countries the administration and or networks algorithm, and also this is all trainers, and also all trainers. The cybersecurity defines the protection of the teenagers such through consistent means against actual related and technical, organizational, and natural dangers pose a risk of the security of the cyberspace, as well as the security of the users in the cyberspace. Okay, just now we said that in our countries, the ministries of the industry and information technologies of the People's Republic of China. This is some administrations groups, administrations of our countries. Is responsible for the network securities, network constructions, and this is show some things about the different countries the cybersecurity defines. Okay. Okay, today these lectures we will show something about the development status of the network information securities, and next and we will show some different countries national strategy and the network information securities concept. And the lecture one, we will show the lectures and content of the network information securities. We will show the some principles of the list. And the last, we will show some technologies of the securities, and from the security problems and threats, and also introduce some security attackers method. And I hope you can I hope you can know the different countries networks constructions, and so I hope you can know some typical attackers. Okay, South Africa is using an autonomous to implement cyber ontology to implement cybersecurity. Yeah, and also different countries that have a different. Yeah.
Recording stopped.
So in our countries, and also there has some active supervision, and also because some in this field we also has some confirmation the evaluation, securities assessment, securities rectification, and the inspections of the communication network units should be implemented, and the relay systems of the telephone users should be implemented. And nowadays in our countries, the telephone users we must use the real names, and the special governance of the spy message should be contented. And I think in these ways we were in China's Communication Etc. Associated has organized several sections of the cybersecurity schemes compilations. Okay, this is our lectures. After these lectures, if you have some questions, you can enter into the list box. And after these lectures, if you have some questions, you can send the email to me. This is my email address. Okay, thank you.
Okay, my friend, thanks our teacher, Miss Chen. And if you have any other questions, please tonight let's talking again. Because from now to next lecture, only 1.5 hours. Everybody enjoy your break time. Have some food, have some drink, and remember, come back on time. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Thanks. Okay, now let's open our cameras. We take a group picture with our teacher. Everybody, turn on your camera. We take a group picture with our teacher, Miss Chen. Okay, be ready. All the pictures at the end of the seminar, I will send it to everybody the email. So it's very important, my friend, turn on your cameras. Okay, 1, 2, smile. Okay, do it again. 1, 2, smile. Okay, thanks, my friend. Thank you very much. And remember, next lecture only 1.5 hours later. So now we can have our food, delicious food. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.